Tonight we talk about the hidden love letters of Marie Antoinette, the kind of story that makes you wonder how anyone in a giant palace filled with mirrors could ever keep a secret. You find yourself gliding into Versailles, the chandeliers blazing like captured suns, powdered wigs bobbing like pastries gone rogue, and even though everything sparkles, you can already sense a hollowness behind the gold. The queen, that young Austrian girl married off to a French king she barely knew, smiles, as if her life depends on it. Spoiler, it kind of does. You probably won't survive this either, but at least you're comfy in bed. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments, where are you watching from, and what time is it right now? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step into Marie Antoinette's gilded cage, Versailles, circa 1770s, a world where shoes cost more than villages, and dessert is basically a competitive sport. One mainstream historical fact is that Marie was just 14 when she arrived in France, expected to secure the Bourbon lineage like it was a group project. She definitely didn't sign up for. She's crowned Madame Deficit by gossip pamphlets because it's easier to blame a teenager for economic collapse than, bad policy. You trail her through long halls, passing courtiers who whisper behind their fans. They think she's frivolous, too into hair that can double as bird housing. True quirky tidbit, there was literally a hairstyle where she wore a model ship on her head. Try fitting that into a carriage. But here's the thing, beneath the towering coiffures and dazzling gowns beats a very lonely heart. Her husband, Louis XVI, is kind but distant, more interested in locks and keys than romance. You watch Marie trying to laugh louder, party harder, anything to fill that gnawing emptiness. She builds a tiny fox village at the Petit Trianon so she can pretend she's a shepherdess on vacation from the crushing weight of monarchy, kind of like a royal VR escape. Historians still argue whether she was naive or unfairly scapegoated, but you can feel the tension building like a violin string pulled too tight. People outside the palace are starving. Inside, they're debating which lace is too scratchy. Not a great look. You move closer, studying the queen's eyes. Every time she turns her head, you catch a flicker, a longing for someone to actually see her. Not her crown. A young woman trapped in spectacle. You notice how she lingers at the edge of balls, her laughter just a second late, her gaze drifting to the door. She pretends she belongs here, but she's still a foreigner in every whisper. Tonight her fan trembles, just once, as though anticipating a future that will rewrite her story. The palace orchestra swells. Violins flutter like nervous birds, and for a heartbeat you think she'll break from the choreography of duty and expectation. But instead she smiles. She always smiles. Nobody around her knows that soon, very soon, she will discover someone who sees past the silk and the diamonds. Someone who will write words that burn brighter than any chandelier. Someone who will risk everything just to slip a secret folded note beneath her fingertips. Love is about to enter Versailles, quiet, dangerous, and written in ink that refuses to fade. Music still echoes in those mirrored halls when you notice him, a tall, composed figure with a uniform that fits almost too well. Count Axel von Fersen, Swedish nobleman, diplomat, and accidental heartthrob, arrives like he owns the room but politely refuses to admit it. You watch Marie Antoinette's attention catch on him like lace snagging on a jeweled chair. Her smile, that perfected royal mask, softens for the first time tonight. There it is, the dangerous spark. You trail a few steps behind as he bows before her, his voice low, smooth as polished steel. There's nothing outwardly scandalous, just courtly pleasantries, a fleeting brush of fingertips. But you feel the temperature shift. You're in the middle of a reality show where the stakes involve guillotines. And suddenly the slow burn romantic subplot has arrived. Unfortunately, no one here has popcorn. They have swan pate. One mainstream historical fact, Fersen and Marie Antoinette became close during the late 1770s and 1780s, seen together at events and even corresponding under coded aliases. People whisper his name behind wallpaper-thin courtesy, because Versailles is basically a giant gossip incubator with chandeliers. You linger near a wall of mirrors, catching their reflections multiplied endlessly, a queen who desperately wants to feel alive, and a man who sees more than jewels and duties. His gaze lingers on her when he thinks no one notices. A footman nearly trips over his own embroidered shoes because, honestly, this tension is distracting. The quirky tidbit you stumble on tonight: Fersen once disguised himself as a coachman so he could assist the royal family more secretly. Imagine being so in love you downgrade. Wardrobe from military Prince Charming to guy who definitely smells like horses. Historians still argue whether their bond fully crossed the line into romance or remained an emotionally charged friendship. Honestly, you're 2 feet away, you can feel the gravitational pull between them. It's like watching magnets pretend they're just roommates. Marie laughs, this time not rehearsed. Her eyes crinkle with something real. The courtiers notice. They always notice. A duchess raises a plucked eyebrow so high it nearly joins the powdered ceiling. The room keeps waltzing, but the rhythm has changed. Later that evening, you slip through a side door as Marie retreats to her private chambers. The queen unpins her towering hair, revealing a woman less braid float, more person. She sighs, the kind that escapes when armor cracks. Her fingers rest lightly on a ribbon he touched earlier. Barely a moment, barely a memory, yet her pulse races like a carriage on a downhill slope. Louis XVI knocks gently, asks if she liked the ball. She replies politely, dutifully. He leaves to study another lock mechanism, because kingdoms are easier than feelings. You watch Marie sit at her ornate desk, quill hovering. She tells herself she's only writing a friendly note, a diplomatic gesture, nothing that could ignite a revolution or ruin a crown. Just gratitude for a pleasant conversation. The quill trembles anyway. You lean closer, reading every tiny stroke. Her handwriting is elegant yet restless, like a violin string haunted by its own music. She pauses, dips ink again. This page will not survive history unchanged. Someday black ink swirls and blotches will censor certain words, words that burn too bright. Outside, carriages roll away on gravel paths. Inside, a new orbit forms, the Queen and the Swedish Count. Their hearts beginning to circle something forbidden. You exhale softly, careful not to disturb the candles, because the smallest spark can set a palace ablaze. And tonight, you've seen fire pretending to be polite, that love is no longer approaching Versailles. It's here. You find yourself back in those gilded corridors, where even silence carries secrets. Versailles is a palace built for watching, every glance catalogued, every whisper intercepted. And now your mission is to keep a secret that could topple this delicate world. Letters, folded into pockets of air between two hearts, pretending to be just friends. Marie Antoinette sits at her writing desk again, this time not hesitating. The candles flicker like conspirators. Her quill scratches, slow, steady, then suddenly fast, like her heartbeat catching up with her courage. She writes to Fersen in ink darker than midnight, choosing words that could either heal her loneliness or become Exhibit A in her downfall. You lean over her shoulder and read a line that's definitely not just diplomatic courtesy. She stops, bites her lip, crosses it out, then writes something even stronger. Here's one mainstream historical fact: the Queen and Fersen used ciphers and pseudonyms in their letters. She became Josephine. He might sign as Euphorion, and sometimes they wrote in invisible sympathetic ink. You'd think royalty would have better things to do, but apparently love makes everyone a part-time spy. You follow as she seals the envelope, pressing her crest into the wax like she's pushing a pulse into the page. But how do you move a love note through a hall full of jealous eyes? Simple, you get creative. Sometimes it's tucked in a fan, the kind fashionable ladies flick open like they're airing opinions. Sometimes it hides inside a bouquet of roses. Once, in a quirky tidbit that sounds like a rom-com deleted scene. A note was reportedly slid into the lining of a glove. Secret hugs. Literally, the palace is awake with suspicion, though everyone keeps pretending they don't see the Queen blush when Fersen enters a room. A maid curtsies to deeply, her eyes lingering too long on that sealed letter. Footsteps echo like accusations. You slip behind Marie, shielding her from the gaze of walls that enjoy gossip way too much. One joke, because otherwise this gets stressful. If the courtiers spent half as much time helping the economy. as they did monitoring who Marie Antoinette smiled at. The revolution might have been cancelled for lack of interest. Historians still argue whether their letters documented a full-fledged affair, or simply a love story trapped behind protocol. Scholars squint at erased words under high-tech imaging, debating if phrases like "I adore you madly" were ever meant to see daylight. But you're standing right here. You can practically see sparks warming the wax seal. Meanwhile, spies, actual spies, roam these hallways masquerading as servants polishing silver trays. They listen for footsteps, watch for handkerchiefs passed too casually. One wrong move and that letter becomes treason. Love shouldn't require encryption keys, but here we are, Romance Edition, James Bond. Powdered wigs required. You walk with Marie as she steps into a balcony that overlooks the gardens. The sky is velvet black, stitched with stars unsure whether they should shine brighter or hide. There, waiting as though he invented patience, is Fersen. They speak quietly, almost without words, every gesture loaded like a musket. He takes the letter. Their hands brush, a fraction of contact that feels like a universe rearranging itself. The Queen exhales, like she's been underwater for years and just found air. Then the doors slam open behind you, just a servant, not a mob. But it's enough to remind everyone how fragile this is. Fersen slips away into the night, letter secured in his coat. Marie turns, expression composed once more. The facade sliding perfectly into place. But now you know what's beneath it. Ink. Risk. Hunger for connection. A secret correspondence just beginning to pulse. Like a heartbeat hidden beneath brocade. Ready to outwit walls and watchers alike. And ready, one day, to betray her. The palace wakes later than the people it rules. But the murmurs outside those gilded gates have begun to thunder. You step into antechambers crackling with tension. Bread prices soar, pamphlets spit venom, and the court's glitter feels like denial-wearing perfume. Marie Antoinette glides through these rooms with the poise of someone pretending. The floor isn't crumbling beneath her jeweled slippers, yet behind every curtsy, you sense her thoughts drifting toward a hidden letter, a coded promise. A heartbeat that doesn't belong to France's king. One mainstream historical fact. By the late 1780s, famine and debt pushed France toward revolt, and Marie Antoinette became the convenient villain, blamed for everything from overspending to personally hoarding grain. Like some kind of diamond-encrusted dragon, you would correct people, but they're hungry and angry, and also they have pitchforks. So maybe keep that thought inside. Voice. You follow the Queen into the Hall of Mirrors. The glass shows a confident monarch, but the reflections lie, because she's terrified. She knows that one misstep will feed the rumors already gnawing at her reputation. So she doubles down on public grace, even while her private world grows dangerously intimate. Fersen arrives again, this time under more watchful eyes. No stolen glove notes today. You hear faint strings from the music room, a waltz too slow to dance to, too sad to ignore. They talk politics first, because love must wear practical camouflage. He urges her to consider escape routes, alliances. She nods, but her gaze drifts to his hands, the ones that carry her letters into the world. A guard stares too long. You shift, blocking the sight line. Even love's shadows need protection. Quirky tidbit time. The court spreads a rumor that Marie secretly keeps a scrapbook of insults. About her, like a royal burn book. If only they knew. Her desk drawers are filled not with petty clippings, but with declarations of affection written in cipher. She heads to the Petty Trianon, her pretend pastoral haven, where she milks porcelain cows and plays the role of carefree shepherdess. You follow the crunch of gravel paths, trees swaying like they're whispering warnings. Inside her cozy retreat, she relaxes, shoulders lowering, breath softening, and once again reaches for pen and paper. Her writing is more desperate tonight. The candles spit sparks as though nervous. She confesses fear, not about losing the throne, but losing him. You steady the ink as she writes too quickly, words tumbling ahead of caution. Historians still argue whether Fersen influenced major political decisions, or simply acted from devotion. But from where you stand, their loyalties are so entangled that separating politics from love feels like tearing silk. Everything frays. Crowds outside chant for bread. Drums beat like war approaching. Inside, She dares to keep hoping that one person might save her, emotionally or literally. A crash. Voices rise. You dash to a window and see torches snaking toward Versailles like angry fireflies. This is no courtly theatrical protest. This is survival boiling over. Marie freezes. She hears them shouting for her blood long before they reach the palace. And yet, beneath that fear, you glimpse something luminous, a conviction that love can be both shield and anchor. When Fersen presses her hand in farewell, he isn't just leaving. He's promising, silently, that this story doesn't end with a mob in the courtyard. You want to believe him, but storms don't. Negotiate with hope. You pull the shutters closed as the queen whispers his name, not like a monarch summoning a knight, but like a woman calling to the one person who sees her outside. The revolution stretches its jaws. Inside, love writes another letter anyway. The palace no longer feels like a fortress. It feels like a target. You step through corridors now guarded by soldiers who look more anxious than loyal. Swords clatter, muskets shake, revolution is breathing down everyone's neck. And nobody knows if tomorrow will come wrapped in velvet or violence. Marie Antoinette stands beside a large map unfurled across a table. Roads, relay stations, safe houses, escape routes laced like veins across a kingdom ready to burst. Count Fersen hovers close, voice low, pulse high. They plan a departure not just from the palace, but from the narrative that has trapped them. If they can flee, maybe France can stabilize. And maybe the hearts can finally exhale. One mainstream historical fact, the flight to Varennes. Planned with Fersen's help in 1791, attempted to sneak the royal family out under disguise. You watch Marie rehearse her role, governess to her own children, nothing regal. Just a mother, the deadliest camouflage for a queen known by every portrait artist in Europe. The costumes are ridiculous in their modesty. Louis XVI must pretend to be a butler. He nearly bows to a servant out of habit. Their daughter complains her shoes are too plain. The Dauphin asks if there will be snacks. You bite your tongue. Revolutionaries typically don't accept snack breaks. Yet beneath the tension, there's a spark. For the first time in years, Marie Antoinette looks purposeful, alive. She clutches a small packet of letters. Fersen's handwriting pressed close to her chest. You notice her fingers linger on his name longer than necessary. Quirky tidbit drifting by, their carriage, overloaded with luggage and royal anxieties, ends up slower than expected because they just had to bring several sets of fancy silverware. Survival, but make it stylish. Historians still argue whether love clouded planning, whether they could have escaped if they'd traveled lighter or split up. But as you take your seat in that rattling carriage, you feel what she feels. She isn't just escaping France. She's racing toward a possibility that feels daringly like happiness. The horses thunder into the night. Wind streaks through your hair, smelling of hay and revolution. Marie peeks out curtains, searching the darkness for Fersen riding behind them, watching over them like the world's most elite bodyguard. Every mile feels stolen from destiny. But dawn is a snitch dot in the town of Varennes. A postmaster notices something odd. The governess looks suspiciously like the queen, whose face is plastered on every coin. He gathers local officials. Voices rise. Hoofbeats stop. You hold your breath. Then the knock at the carriage door, louder than any guillotine blade that has yet to fall. Soldiers swarm. The royal family is recognized. The escape collapses like poorly folded origami. Fersen isn't there, forced to ride ahead, unable to turn back in time. For Marie, the world tilts. The plan, the hope, the future, all snatched away in a single misidentified profile. As you're marched back toward Paris, crowds gather, hurling insults like rotten fruit. But Marie keeps her chin high, clutching those letters inside her bodice, the ones that still smell faintly of courage and cologne. Because love, even when cornered, refuses to surrender. You lean close as she whispers to herself that she will see him again, not as a queen, not as a prisoner, but as the woman he dared to love. The wheels turn slowly, each rotation grinding dream into dread, yet hidden beneath silk and fear. The letters rustle like wings, ready to fly again. The locks on the doors clank shut with a finality that tastes like iron. You step into the Tuileries Palace, once a spare royal residence. now a velvet-lined prison. Outside, the crowd chants for justice. Inside, Marie Antoinette's world shrinks to a few guarded rooms and the faint perfume of ink hidden in drawers. She paces like a caged swan, elegant even in panic. The windows look out onto France, but they may as well be walls. And still, her heart travels to the man who wasn't there when the carriage was stopped, who she hopes is plotting a second chance. One mainstream historical fact: even after the flight to Varennes failed, Marie Antoinette and Fersen continued to exchange letters from captivity, using intermediaries, secret ciphers, and emotional code words to bypass revolutionary scrutiny. The world is collapsing, but apparently the mail must go through. You watch as a trusted servant arrives, pretending to deliver fabric swatches, like Marie suddenly cares whether the curtains match the mood of despair. Tucked inside the folds is a letter. She unfolds it with trembling hands, trying not to appear desperate. But you see the relief flood her face. Fersen is alive. More importantly, he still loves her. Her quill becomes her weapon. She writes back feverishly, documenting fear, strategy, and longing. You catch a line that practically glows. "You are the one I love." The candlelight flickers, jealous of the heat in those words. But these are dangerous sentences. Revolutionaries scour her papers for proof she's scheming with foreign powers. And in a way, she is, though her treason is more romantic than political. Quirky tidbit: some letters were written in iron gall ink so faint that they appeared blank at first glance. Invisible romance that only revealed itself after a chemical bath. It's the historical equivalent of sending a message that self-destructs, minus the explosion and plus a lot of questionable science. Historians still argue whether the hidden passages were passionate confessions or coded diplomatic instructions. Scholars holding fragile pages under ultraviolet lamps debate whether beloved meant a lover's whisper or a queen's formal courtesy. But you stand beside her, and you hear the truth in her heartbeat. Louis XVI moves through the room slowly, heavy with defeat. He's trying, in his quiet, awkward way, to provide comfort. He jokes about locks again, because that's all he knows. Marie forces a smile, but later, when he's asleep, she returns to her true refuge, ink and secrecy. You help her tuck another letter into the hem of a skirt meant for mending. A seamstress will carry it out. Every stitch is both risk and prayer. Night deepens. Guards trade shifts. Somewhere in the darkness, the queen presses her forehead against cool glass, imagining Fersen doing the same miles away. A secret symmetry. A joke crosses your mind that this is the most high-stakes pen-pal relationship in history. But you keep it quiet. She's tired of laughter that hides sadness. Then, commotion. Footsteps thunder in the hallway. You snatch the letter she hasn't yet hidden, slide it behind a portrait. A soldier barges in, demanding to search the chamber. His torchlight prowls every corner. The queen stands motionless, porcelain hardened into steel. The portrait stares innocently back. After he leaves, she collapses into the nearest chair, breath shaking. For a moment, it seems like the secret love might drown under the weight of surveillance. But then she touches the sealed letter in her bodice, the one she'd already received, and her spine straightens. As long as one message makes it from heart to heart, hope survives. The revolution can imprison a queen, but it can't lock away her longing. And tomorrow, she will write again. You're back at the writing desk, the air thick with candle smoke and fear. The revolution sharpens its knives not only on throats, but on sentences. Marie Antoinette's letters, once a fluttering secret, now wear armor, coded names, cipher wheels, and thick swaths of ink smeared across entire lines. You watch her lift her quill, knowing that every word risks her life, and yet she writes anyway. One mainstream historical fact: many surviving letters between Marie Antoinette and Fersen contain blacked-out redactions later revealed through modern technology to conceal deeply personal expressions. Scholars literally peel back centuries of censorship with scientific lasers. Like love archaeologists. Tonight, Marie braces the page with steady hands. She first writes plainly, matters of negotiation, the political temperature. Then the quill hesitates, stalls, trembles. A different ink bottle opens. The darker stuff, the private stuff. She scribbles something fast, like she's afraid courage will bail halfway through. You barely catch a glimpse, my dear and tender friend, before she sweeps her hand over it, redacting her own heart. The ink blot expands like a bruise. Historians still argue whether these smudged confessions prove a consummated romance, or simply a love too dangerous to define. Some experts insist they were plotting diplomacy, not passion. Others lean in close to the uncovered lines and whisper, "Come on." This is basically texting "I miss you" in 18th century code. From where you sit, you see yearning pressed into every letter, quirky tidbit fluttering in through the bars. The cipher they used included substituting emotional words with numbers or symbols, like teenagers using emojis. Except getting caught could equal treason instead of mild embarrassment. As tensions build, spies swarm, ministers demand to inspect correspondence. Even the servants start to look like informants. It would be easier to stop writing entirely, easier, but unbearable. The queen wipes her eyes and continues. Fersen writes back, equally fierce, advising, reassuring, promising that he will come through for them all. But these ink-drenched pages carry weight. Each one is a gamble. The risk grows teeth. One night, the redactions turn frantic. You hear her mutter, "They must not know. They must never know." The blotches stretch across the parchment like storm clouds. These aren't just censored lines. They are the pieces of herself she believes France would gleefully shred to ribbons. Outside the Tuileries, drums beat late into the night. Angry citizens gather like thunderheads, demanding action, demanding heads. You hope the windows hold Dot inside. Marie lights another candle, though dawn creeps closer, because vulnerability requires illumination. She reads Fersen's latest letter again. There's a coded line only the two of them understand. You don't need the cipher key. You feel the warmth radiating from the page. Love has its own language. And then a joke lands in your mind uninvited. Nothing says romantic quite like mutually assured destruction wrapped in fancy stationery. You decide maybe keep that one to yourself. She's exhausted, and high-risk humor might not help. She hides the pages in a secret compartment of a dressing table, one of those aristocratic IKEA hacks, with too many places to stash either jewels or felony evidence. You slide the drawer closed gently, as if quiet could render it invisible. The queen pauses before snuffing the candle. Her reflection in the glass looks older, not aged by time, but by vigilance. She smooths the paper edges with reverence, as though touching Fersen's cheek across distances. Ink can leap, but bodies cannot. She whispers into the dark, "They can black out words, but not what I mean." The city replies with a roar. You lie awake beside her silence, realizing that love here is not soft. It is rebellion dipped in ink. It takes the shape of sentences that refuse to die. Tomorrow. There will be more letters. Tomorrow. There may be fewer places to hide them. And tomorrow. Redaction ink will not feel like surrender, only strategy. Because as long as even one word survives, so will she. You choose not to back away. Not now. Not after everything you've passed through in this palace of dazzled senses and dangerous desires. The wavering torchlight paints your shadow across walls that seem closer than they were a breath ago, as though the palace itself leans in to listen. You feel the marble floor grow warmer beneath your feet like a pulse. You have learned to be wary of warmth here. Beauty always comes with teeth. You follow the faintest whisper of music, thin, metallic, trembling like a blade. It leads you into a long corridor lined with doors of different sizes and shapes. Some are grand enough for an emperor's entrance. Others are sized for a child or a crouching servant. Every door bears a different emblem: a theater mask, a rosebud, a gladiator's helm, a serpent biting its own tail. You realize each symbol represents one of the emperor's obsessions: the playful, the poetic, the predatory. You pass a door marked by a wreath of laurel leaves. It seems to hum with applause. Another door, its handle shaped like a curled whip, gives a low, hungry rattle. A third door unadorned. Plain wood radiates a stillness that somehow pulls you closer than any spectacle. You hesitate. Then a wind rushes down the hall, extinguishing your torch. The music grows louder. Your fingers graze the plain door, and it swings open by the lightest touch. You enter a chamber drenched in silver moonlight coming from a massive oculus overhead. Beneath that celestial spotlight stands a single object, a pedestal holding a polished bronze mirror. The surface reflects not your appearance, but your intentions, your fears swirling like dark smoke behind your eyes. your courage flickering like a candle's flame. This was Nero's private mirror. Here he rehearsed every glance, every gesture, every smoldering look meant to bend hearts like molten gold. Here he practiced belief in his own brilliance, belief that he deserved the world's devotion. In this room, Nero was his own god and only worshiper. You feel the mirror tug at you, not with force, but with promise. It whispers that if you truly know yourself, nothing can control you, not emperor, not crowd, not the palace itself. But self-knowledge in this place may cut sharper than any dagger. A footstep behind you. You turn to see a figure stepping from the shadows, one of Nero's actors, still in ghostly white stage paint. Dark kohl rims their eyes. Tears of black pigment streak down their cheeks. They move silently, their breath shallow, as though they fear their own voice. You recognize the haunted look of someone who has lived too long inside another man's fantasies. They hold up a palm, shaking their head, warning you, do not look too long. You remember that earlier, at Nero's feasts, actors performed tragedies for an audience that demanded emotion, but never empathy. Their grief was entertainment, their pain a performance, and Nero collected performers the way others collected jewelry, fragile treasures to be broken, and replaced. The actor gestures urgently now, imploring you to leave. But something in the mirror shifts. You glimpse not fear, but possibility. A symbol emerges behind your reflection, the dragon scale pattern of a secret passage you have yet to discover. Clues ripple across the bronze like silk tossed in wind. For the first time, the palace offers guidance rather than illusion. You step back, balancing on the edge between curiosity and caution. The actor's eyes widen, pleading. You feel the palace holding its breath. You make your choice. Your fingertips brush the mirror. The bronze shivers beneath your touch like a living creature. Light fractures. The moonbeam scatters into bright shard stars flung across the chamber walls. The floor gives way. You fall not into darkness, but into memory. Screams and cheers tangle together. A stage erupts into flame. Nero stands at the center, arms spread, bathed in the adoration he demanded. His voice booms, intoxicating, desperate. Firelight devours the painted scenery. Actors cough and choke off stage, but the show must go on. Because the emperor is performing. You crash through the burning illusion and land hard on a new floor, smooth, cold, silent. Torches ignite one by one around you, revealing a colossal underground hall. Frescoes of fire and triumph coil along the walls. Statues of Nero multiply into a forest of stone gazes, every one angled toward you. The music has stopped. Here, in the hidden heart of the palace, there are no performances. Only truth. You rise, breath unsteady, and discover you are not alone. Someone waits for you in the center of the hall, wrapped in imperial purple. Their crown glints like a predator's eye. Nero has found you. Nero stands before you alive in a way that stone or rumor could never contain. His presence is a pressure, like heat from a fire that hasn't touched you yet, but absolutely intends to. His purple cloak ripples as though stirred by a hidden wind, and the laurel crown atop his head gleams like a warning. He smiles, and it is not a cruel smile. That makes it somehow worse. You've come far, his eyes say, even if his lips don't. Far enough to see what others pretend not to know. Behind him, the flicker of torches throws giant shadows of his statues across the chamber wall. Sten Neros. 20 Neros, an army of imperfection carved into permanent worship. You realize this room was never meant to be found. It is the mausoleum of his ego, the vault for his insecurities, the theater with an audience of stone. Your pulse drums. You should probably bow or kneel, or at least avoid death by imperial displeasure. But you hold your ground. It's not bravery. It's the certainty that running would make you pray. Nero glides closer, his sandals whispering against the marble. He looks you over like a fellow performer evaluating not your station, but your stage presence. The emperor adored theater because it blurred truth with desire. Here, he examines whether you know the difference. Historians still argue whether Nero's greatest love was himself, you think, or the idea of himself. Both options feel equally exhausting. A small laugh escapes him, soft but triumphant, as though he has plucked that thought right from your head. He gestures around the hall, and suddenly frescoes spring into motion. The walls blaze with living scenes, crowds roaring, torches waving. a singer bathed in golden spotlight. You watch Nero command an overflowing amphitheater, his voice echoing across centuries, his expression wild with the hunger to be adored. It's stunning. It's terrifying. And the audience matters more than oxygen. Nero steps beside you to admire the spectacle. See, his silence insists. They loved me. They needed me. But as the performance repeats again and again, like a scratched record of eternity, you spot what he refuses to see. The crowd loves the moment, not the man. Applause fades. Adoration tires. Even emperors get unfollowed eventually. And for Nero, whose heart was shaped like a stage, that reality was unbearable. A new scene erupts, flames devouring the city. Chaos rolling like smoke across avenues and rooftops. Rumors swirl in molten color. Did Nero start the fire so he could rebuild Rome as his masterpiece? Or did he merely seize an opportunity for performance while ash fell like snow? Historians still argue whether Nero fiddled while Rome burned. You don't see a fiddle now. You see a man performing atop the end of his world. Nero watches the burning fresco as though savoring a familiar high. Then so quickly you flinch, he turns back to you. You understand it, don't you? His stare pierces. Greatness demands witnesses. One of the stone narrows cracks down the cheek, thus drifting like tears. The air in the chamber tastes electric, dangerous. You sense the palace shifting its loyalties, wondering whether you might be the next spectacle worth worshipping or destroying. Nero steps closer, too close. You notice the human truth behind the theatrical polish, exhaustion etched beneath his eyes, a tremor in his fingers. Beneath the emperor's costume stands a frightened man who could never be loved enough. He lifts a hand, palm open, the torches flare, and the fresco walls split apart, revealing a hidden door carved with a single word. Exit. Your lungs swell. Freedom, reality, survival. But Nero shakes his head, once gentle, pleading. A performer begging you not to leave the show early. You stand between two unbearable invitations. Obey an emperor's desire, or step into a world where you are no longer part of his story. Your hand reaches for the door. Behind you, Nero whispers, finally using his voice. And it is heartbreakingly small. Don't let the audience go. The statues watch in frozen suspense. The firelight trembles. All of Rome past and present seems to wait for your necks. Moved. You push the door. Light pours in like dawn breaking over. Tyranny. You step through. And the palace roars its disapproval. The roar rises behind you like a beast denied its prey. An avalanche of stone and echoing fury. The palace of Nero, accustomed to being the center of every gaze, does not appreciate being left. You stumble forward into a tunnel of rough-cut rock, much less polished than the rest of the imperial fantasy. Torches blink awake as you pass, guiding you onward despite the quake rattling from behind. Like the whole structure is throwing a tantrum, you run your fingertips along the wall, still warm, as though Nero's desire has soaked into every stone. Ahead, the tunnel opens into a narrow passage reinforced by wooden beams. You detect the faint scent of hay, damp earth, and the everyday life of the people who lived under the emperor's whims. This is a servant's escape, carved in secret. The real Rome presses close now, imperfect, unadorned, gloriously free from theatrical lighting. A memory flickers, those hidden actors who warned you. The mirror that showed you possibilities, the performers who perfected pain for applause. This emperor could script everything inside his palace, but out here, reality never learned its lines. Your breath steadies as you move forward. The ground is uneven. Pebbles crunch beneath your feet. You realize the trembling behind you has eased. The palace's fury mellows into a low grumble. Maybe it knows theatrics are pointless without an audience, and you have refused to watch. The tunnel bends sharply, then daylight scorches your eyes. You blink rapidly and step into the open air. Rome stretches before you, sunlit and sprawling. Laundry flaps from windows, merchants shout prices. A stray dog scratches behind its ear like it has never heard of emperors. No marble illusions, no velvet prisons. You exhale a laugh. You survived Nero's nightmare Disneyland. Barely, but with style, historically. Nero's reign ended with rebellion, desertion, even his own guards abandoning him. Scholars still argue whether he was a monster, a misunderstood artist, or simply a man who didn't know when the show was over. But one truth is clear. Even emperors can't hold an audience forever. A street performer nearby plucks a lyre an off-key note, but sincere. You think about Nero, who would have executed the poor soul for daring to be mediocre in his presence. Here, mediocrity feels like a luxury safe, anonymous, beautifully ordinary. You glance back once. The hidden door is already swallowed by ivy and shadow. As though the palace has erased the escape from its script. No applause follows you. No spotlights. No statues judging your posture. Your story returns to being yours. You stretch your arms to the sunlight and begin walking into the gentle chaos of Rome, leaving behind the echoes of an emperor who once believed the world was his stage. And perhaps for a while, it was. But now the curtain has fallen. The audience has gone home. And you lucky you are free. For now, just let the brightness soften into a warm, velvety haze around you. Even the clamor of the city seems to quiet as though it understands you've earned a moment of peace. You can still feel the marble under your feet, the gilded ceilings above, the heat of fire and applause, yet they're far away now. Like half-remembered dreams that slip away before you can decide whether they were scary, or thrilling, or a little of both. You're safe. You're outside the palace. Nothing is chasing you. Nothing demands that you perform. Let your shoulders relax. Notice how the air feels different out here, cooler, friendlier, full of ordinary people who laugh and cough and trade gossip with zero concern for emperors or grand stages. You've stepped into a world where no one expects perfection, where you don't need to shine or charm or survive a palace designed by a man who feared being forgettable. You did something Nero never could. You walked off stage. Let your thoughts drift like curtains closing after a long, exhausting show. The audience has vanished. The lights fade. The costumes loosen. And you, finally, can be natural and small and real. Breathe in. Breathe out. If your eyelids feel heavy, that's okay. Let them. If your limbs soften into the mattress or blanket beneath you, that's exactly what they're meant to do right now. Just picture the sky of Rome overhead wide. Forgiving. Sprinkled with stars that don't care who watches them. They shine anyway. Tonight, you get to rest. Tomorrow, you choose your own scenes. Sweet dreams.